I'm gonna restore your faith in humanity, part 6. This dog has arthritis, so his owner carries him through a lake every single day because it helps alleviate the dog's pain. These cleaning workers dressed up as superheroes to help cheer up patients at a children's hospital. And this marathon runner gave up her spot in first place to help a disabled runner who was struggling. They crossed the finish line together. This man right here will restore your faith in humanity. His name is Mohammed Bazik, and he's a foster parent. Throughout the years, he's adopted countless blind, deaf, and mentally ill children and treated them as if they were his own. Basically, he takes in all the children that nobody else wants. Muhammad always has terminally ill children at his house, and he makes sure that they are loved and comfortable before their deaths. Despite getting colon cancer in his early 60s, Muhammad continues to care for the children and makes sure that each and every one of them is loved by a parent to the very end. Believe it or not, this is a brain-eating fly that turns its victims into zombies. These flies are called forward flies, and luckily, they usually target ants and not humans. During reproduction, these flies insert one of their babies into the back of an ant, and the baby crawls to the ant's head, where it eventually eats the brain. With no brain, and with a baby fly living in its head, these ants wander around for 1 or 2 weeks in a zombie state before dying of thirst. After the ant's dead, the baby fly releases a chemical that causes the ant's head to fall off, and the baby fly grows in the ant's head until it's mature enough to fly away. If it makes you feel any better, these flies almost always target dangerous fire ants, and honestly, they're doing us a huge favor. Unsolved Mysteries from Every U.S. State, Part 46, Delaware. In 1990, a nurse named Sandy Andrews was heading home from work at night. She made a call to her husband right before she left her workplace, but that was the last time she was ever heard from. Her abandoned car was found the next day behind a building. Strangely, there was no evidence that a struggle had occurred, and Sandy's car keys and purse were left untouched in the car. To this day, no one has found any clues as to what happened to Sandy Andrews. These two kids will restore your faith in humanity. These two were best friends in preschool and wanted to play a prank on their teacher. So, they decided to get the exact same haircut so the teacher couldn't tell them apart. Incredibly, neither of the children realized or cared that they were different colors. In their eyes, if they got the exact same haircut, they would look the exact same. It's an adorable demonstration of how colorblind children are, and a good reminder that nobody is born racist. Here's how a bear saved a man's life. In 2012, a 69-year-old man was going on a hike in California when he came across a mother bear and her cub. The man was watching the bears when suddenly a mountain lion jumped on his back from behind. The mountain lion's claws left the old man bleeding and wounded. However, before the mountain lion could severely injure the old man, the mother bear comes lumbering over and, like out of a movie, picks the mountain lion up by the neck. The two animals struggle on the ground for a little bit before the mountain lion runs away. Honestly, bears are generally pretty nice and peaceful animals, and this story shows that. This is why you should never wear noise-canceling headphones. In 1995, a man was playing video games upstairs while wearing a pair of noise-canceling headphones. During a pretty quiet moment in the man's game, he hears a faint yelling from downstairs. The man knew that his wife and daughter were downstairs, but he wanted to check to make sure that everything was okay. The man heads downstairs, and the very first thing he sees is his wife and daughter cowering in the corner while a stranger with a dagger stands over them. Luckily, the man had a pistol in his house and was able to subdue the intruder before it was too late. Terrifyingly, it was later discovered that the intruder had a severe mental illness and had been convicted of a number of horrible crimes. If the man's game hadn't gone quiet for that little bit, who knows what would have happened. Strangest Unsolved Mysteries from Every U.S. State, Part 50, Wyoming. If you live in Wyoming, you're probably very familiar with the Devil's Tower. After all, it is a national monument. However, there are several mysteries surrounding the Devil's Tower, most notably, the large amount of UFO sightings in that one specific area. There have been countless reports of strange lights, orbs, and other unidentified objects flying around the Devil's Tower at night. And it really doesn't help that the Devil's Tower has one of the strangest and most unnatural rock formations known to man. Many ancient tribes from Wyoming called the Devil's Tower a sacred location, and maybe they were right. Best Parents Ever, Part 1. A 23-year-old man in China didn't have a job and played video games all day. The guy's dad didn't like that, so he decided to hire some virtual hitmen to kill his son in-game. The players that his dad hired were all higher level and more skilled than his son, and every time his son played the game, he would get targeted and killed immediately. Funny enough, the son ended up getting extremely bored and frustrated, and finally decided on getting a job. Honestly, that's just amazing parenting. Go dad. What if I told you you could have carbon monoxide poisoning right now and you wouldn't even know? In 2010, a man kept finding strange sticky notes in his apartment, reminding him to do chores. However, the man couldn't recognize the handwriting on the sticky notes, and he was confused because no one else had access to his apartment, so he didn't know who wrote them. The man would later find out that the writing on the sticky notes was actually his own handwriting. He had just forgotten what it looked like. This is because the high levels of carbon monoxide in his apartment were suffocating his brain and causing brain damage and memory loss. So, if you find yourself just always feeling tired or dizzy, or you start to forget some pretty important things, you might want to go see a doctor. These are the two most dangerous substances in the world, and if you even breathe in a few flakes, you will die an agonizing death. The first one is polonium-210, and it can actually be found in nature. This substance is so dangerous that if you inhale just 620 nanograms, which is about the same as 2 to 3 grains of pollen, you would die a very painful death. But by far the most dangerous toxin known to mankind is botulinum toxin, which is commercially sold as Botox. Just 62 nanograms of this dangerous substance can kill you, which is about the same weight as 62 of your body cells. Luckily, only small fractions of that lethal dose are actually used in commercial Botox, but still, that's pretty crazy. Strangest Unsolved Mysteries from Every U.S. State, Part 45, New Mexico. This is the story of one of the most famous UFO sightings ever. In 1947, a rancher living in Roswell, New Mexico, came across some mysterious debris in a field. The United States Air Force claimed that the mysterious parts came from a crashed weather balloon, but no one really bought it. Pretty much everyone believed that what they had actually found was a crashed alien spacecraft. People were even more suspicious 50 years later when the government revealed that the debris hadn't come from a weather balloon, but from a top-secret government project. To this day, no one really knows what crashed in Roswell, New Mexico, but it is suspicious that the government would lie about it. Kinda makes you wonder, what are they trying to hide? Strangest Unsolved Mysteries from Every U.S. State, Part 48, Connecticut. In 2012, Hurricane Sandy caused a tree to fall down in a park in Connecticut. That would have been a pretty normal thing if it hadn't been for the human skull that passerbyers found in the roots of the tree. Experts were later called to dig around the tree, and they eventually found an estimated 5,000 human bodies buried underneath the park. To this day, no one knows why the people were buried there, and no one knows how they died. The Best Parents Ever, Part 2. This woman is a multi-millionaire, but voluntarily works as a street cleaner. She wakes up at 3 a.m. 6 days a week to work. She hopes to set a great example for her own children and to remind them to stay humble. Things the human body does that you didn't know about, Part 1. You're actually always looking at your nose, but your brain just ignores it for you. When you shout, your brain actually turns down your hearing, so you don't deafen yourself. When a pregnant woman has heart tissue damage, her unborn baby will actually send stem cells to help her repair it. These are the easiest jobs that actually pay really well. First, we have water slide tester. Although this one could be a tad dangerous, it pays you $26 an hour on average to just have fun. Next, we have golf ball diver. For this one, literally all you have to do is get the golf balls that fall in ponds for an average of $26 an hour. And finally, professional cuddler. These people are also called touch therapists, and they get paid on average $37 an hour to hug and hold hands with patients for emotional support. Strangest Unsolved Mysteries from Every U.S. State, Part 49, Utah. The Skinwalker Ranch in Utah is a well-known hotspot for paranormal activity and UFO sightings. The area there is called Skinwalker Ranch because many people reported seeing a skinwalker there, which looks something like this thing. In addition, the Skinwalker Ranch has a long history of strange, unidentified objects floating in the sky, as well as tons of cow mutilations. People have also reported seeing the ghost of a little girl, as well as a black mist that seems to be alive. While scientists and researchers have tried to explain the bizarre phenomenon over the past few years, the Skinwalker Ranch still largely remains a mystery. This is what your favorite season says about you, according to psychology. If your favorite season is spring, you probably enjoy experiencing new things, and you're probably a pretty warm and loving person. If your favorite season is summer, you're probably a more outgoing and extroverted person, and you probably have a pretty joyful and optimistic personality. If fall is your favorite season, your life is probably a roller coaster of emotions, but you probably have a calm, romantic, and creative personality. And finally, if you really like winter, you're probably a more calm and introverted person, and you probably don't like to step out of your comfort zone. 3 everyday things that you need to stop doing because it could be terrible for your health. Number 1, eating while watching TV or while you're on your phone. You might not realize this, but when you're distracted while eating, you generally ignore when your brain tells you you're full, so you keep on eating and you probably gain weight. Number 2, sleeping with the light on. Light actually disturbs your brain while you sleep and can lead to many health consequences including depression, mood swings, and obesity. And number 3, showering directly after exercise. You should wait at least 20 minutes after exercise before showering, or you could get sick or catch a virus. Things the human body does that you didn't know about. Part 3. Your brain constantly filters out useless sounds and only lets you hear the relevant sounds. For example, when you're in a crowded room and everyone's talking, you can't really hear what anyone is saying. But the minute someone says your name, even if it's from across the room, your brain locks onto it immediately and you hear it. When a woman gets pregnant, she actually grows a new organ called the placenta that helps nourish and sustain the baby. After the baby's born, the organ is ejected from the woman's body. Whenever you hold in a fart, it gets reabsorbed into your bloodstream, carried to your lungs, and then exhaled through your mouth. If someone's face suddenly starts drooping like this, call 911 immediately. It probably means they're having a stroke, and if you act fast, you can save their life. A good way to check to make sure someone's having a stroke and not some random face drooping condition is to ask them to smile. If they have any difficulties with smiling, you can be pretty sure they're having a stroke. If you remember these stroke symptoms, you could save a life. Best Parents Ever, Part 3. Every year, this dad runs a full triathlon while carrying his daughter, who has cerebral palsy and can't move. The father knows his daughter loves the outdoors, but she can't walk, bike, or swim on her own. So, the dad has done everything he can, including swimming a triathlon while pulling a kayak, to make sure his daughter has those experiences. Things the human body does that you didn't know about, Part 2. If you lose 75% of your liver, it can still grow back to full size. The average male produces enough sperm in 1 week to impregnate every single woman on Earth, including your mom. When your fingers look like this underwater, it's actually your body adapting to grab things better underwater. This man was lost at sea for 438 days and he still survived. His name is Jose, and in 2012 when he was fishing off the coast of Mexico, his small boat got caught in a storm. Unfortunately, the boat's motor and radio equipment were destroyed in the storm, and Jose, along with one other passenger, began to float further and further out into the ocean. The boat basically had no supplies, so the two men survived by eating pigeons, turtles, and fish, and drinking rainwater, turtle blood, and urine. Unfortunately, after around 3 months, Jose's partner began to lose hope and feel depressed, and he eventually starved himself to death, leaving Jose all alone. After floating at sea for another 12 months with no human contact, Jose finally came across an island and was rescued. To this day, he still holds the world record for having the longest solo drift at sea. This is what you should do if your parachute ever fails during a skydive. The chances of this happening may be greater than you think. It's about 1 in 1,000. Regardless, the first thing you want to do is position your body in the shape of an X, with your arms and legs spread out wide and your head pointed upwards. This will help create more air resistance and slow your fall. Next, you'll want to choose a good landing spot, most preferably snow or trees, or something that will break your fall. Even landing on a car or a tall building would be better than landing on the ground. The one place you don't want to land is water, because it would be the same impact as hitting the ground normally, and you'd probably lose consciousness and drown. Finally, you want to land on the balls of your feet with your hands protecting your head. This might sound dumb, but your legs will absorb most of the impact from the fall and give you a greater chance of survival. Ridiculous movie myths that people actually believe. Part 2. Number 1. It is better to shoot 2 guns at once in a fight. Yeah, you might look really cool for a few seconds, but you'll miss every shot and then you'll die. Number 2. You can talk to another diver during free fall. In reality, when you're falling, wind is constantly traveling past your ears, making it nearly impossible to hear what anyone is saying. And finally, number 3, you can use a defibrillator to restart a stopped heart. This one is just completely false. Defibrillators are actually used to fix an uneven heartbeat and can't possibly restart a heart. Weird things that you can buy online. Part 1. On Amazon, you can actually buy a pair of instant underwear for less than $5. All you have to do is put the little white cylinder in water, and voila, you have a new pair of fresh white undies. You can snag a pair of grass top flip-flops so you can always feel the grass between your toes. Roller coaster straw for just unnecessarily complicated drinking. Looks kinda fun though. This is what your fingernails say about you. Believe it or not, these little half moons can actually tell you how healthy you are. For example, if you see your moon suddenly disappear, it could be a sign that you have anemia, malnutrition, or depression. And if your moons are any color other than white, it probably means you have a certain disease. Red moons generally mean heart failure, and pale blue moons mean diabetes, to name a few. However, if your moons are white and a pretty decent size, it probably means you're pretty healthy. Some people's moons are just naturally different from others. But if you see drastic changes in the size or color of your moons, you might want to go see a doctor. If you make fun of this dude, you could spend the rest of your life in jail. He's the king of Thailand, a country where it's considered a severe criminal offense to insult or criticize the royal family. In fact, in 2017, a man was sentenced to 70 years in prison for creating 10 Facebook posts that insulted the king of Thailand. Even crazier, the law doesn't just apply to people in Thailand, it applies to people everywhere. Theoretically, if I were to insult the king of Thailand right now, and I visited Thailand sometime in my future, I would get arrested there. So, next time y'all are thinking about making fun of the royal family of Thailand, just make sure you don't get caught. If you're a dude and you test positive on a pregnancy test, you need to go see the doctor immediately. Why? Because you probably have testicular cancer. As it turns out, the specific hormone that pregnancy tests look for is not just produced in pregnancy, but is also produced in several types of testicular cancer. So, for all the guys who are extremely curious about whether they have testicle cancer or not, all you have to do is take a pregnancy test. It doesn't always tell you if you have it, but if it does, it could save your life.